I'm joined here by men's basketball coach Jake Diebler. Jake, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Just to start, the transfer portal window closed a couple days ago. Just how confident are you with the guys you have in the building right now?
Yeah, transfer portal finally closed.
Yeah.
This is a wild time of year. I think the transfer portal is unique. It certainly has provided options for players, but it's also provided some options for coaches. And I think for us, when we were looking at building out this roster, we wanted to start with retention. And our focus was certainly Bruce, John Mobley, and Devin Royal. And those guys, committing to stay here is a huge deal. When you look at the value of retention across college basketball this past season, it proved to be, extremely valuable. And so we now have three guys who are proven really good players in the Big Ten and guys who will continue to make a jump, committed to come back. And then we got some young guys that we're really excited about, their development as well staying. So we wanted to build out this roster, the foundation of it being retention. And so I'm really excited about it, yeah.
Are you anticipating now adding a couple more players, I imagine, in the near future? Do you have any timeline on that and just your thoughts on getting to add some new faces still?
Yeah, we're not done. And, now we can target some very specific fits. I think fit's really important. Certainly talent is important too, but fit is equally important. And, now that the portal has closed, you have an idea of kind of all the options available. We're starting to narrow our focus on some specific guys, and we'll build out the rest of the roster that way.
And through the portal, you lost 5 players. Just what are those? Take us inside what those conversations are like, and how tough it is for you to say goodbye to guys that you've went to war with for an entire season or more.
Yeah, it's honest. I think that at the end of the day, the biggest thing in the spring season is you have to be brutally honest. And our focus was figuring out exactly what we need to compete for a Big Ten championship and the qualities that exist to help you do that. And so if guys, maybe didn't fit that as well as we would have liked, we wanted to help them find an opportunity where maybe whether it was play more or that fit them better.
Right.
But for us, in the springtime, it's winning over everything. It's program first, and it's hard because you build deep relationships and you connect with guys certainly on a deep level. But to answer your question, you got to be really honest, and you want that to be two-way, right? Like you want them to be honest with us and with me, and I want to be honest with them. And sometimes it's a multiple conversation, thing in the spring.
And then you brought in 3 guys already, right? Gabe Cupps, Christoph Tilley, Brandon Noel. Just what did you see in those guys throughout the process, and what gives you the confidence that they're the right pieces to add to this program and this team?
Yeah, well, aside from size, with a couple of those guys, right, that was important for us. We needed to add some size, but I think, experience, guys who have played a lot of college basketball, guys who have produced, for multiple years in college basketball, and for us in the front court, being more skilled was important to me. Being more skilled and that experience should help us have a collective higher basketball IQ as a team, which allows you to be more creative, and versatile both offensively and defensively.
Just overall, how would you describe the state of the program right now with the additions you already made and guys transferring out? How would you describe what it looks like right now?
Yeah, really good, really good. Obviously, we're not done yet, and I think we can get to great, once we finish out this roster, and that'll take, that's not going to happen overnight. Again, things slow down a little bit this time of year. But we're going to be able to have everything put together. I feel confident we'll have everything put together by the time we start working in June. But I'm really excited about this team. Really excited about this team. I think we have put together a roster so far that raises our level significantly. And, as we put the finishing touches on it, I think we have a chance, to really be competing for the top of the conference. And that's where this program belongs. I've said this publicly, right? This program, when it is at its peak historically, is competing for Big Ten championships and deep runs in the NCAA tournament. I don't think that has to be a long, drawn-out process to get there. Certainly with the transfer portal, the way things are, there's a lot that goes into recruiting and how you build out a roster. NIL is a factor of that. But, this isn't meant to be like, we took a step forward this year in year one. I don't want to take a small step forward in year 2. I want to take a jump. I want to take a leap. And I think we are positioned to do that with the roster we've been able to put together so far.
And I know ever since you were promoted as interim, you've been a sponge, just in general, soaking everything up, learning. Just after the season that you had last year, what lessons have you been able to take away that can help you and the team in the future?
Yeah, well, aside from 9 games decided by 1 possession or less, and I think the well-documented, we'll define it as roster adversity we faced, throughout the course of the season. Those were all things that, you don't necessarily quite get to plan for, But I think for us, what I was really proud of is, despite all the adversity we faced, we were in position to control our own destiny at the end of the season. Now, disappointed we didn't ultimately do that. Right, and when we get the roster together, there will be a deeper dive as a staff and to reflect on, okay, why is that, and I have thoughts on that already, but I just really want to study it, more intently. We haven't quite had the time to do that with putting the roster together. But I think for us, there's certainly disappointed the way it ended, because I felt like we had put ourselves in position to be an NCAA tournament team, didn't meet that goal, left it up to, ultimately a room full of guys to make a decision where if we win one more game, we'll probably, control our own destiny. So excited how we overcame all the adversity. Guy being gone after 10 games, guy missing significant chunks of the season, the amount of sickness and injuries we dealt with all year long. I was just really proud of the way we handled that.
What are your feelings on the shot, the atmosphere in the shot for game days, and how does it compare to some of the other places that you've been to around the country?
It's going to get better. I can say that. I'm really excited. Ross and I have been working closely, and he has invested a lot of time and energy in raising the level of the atmosphere in the shot. I think that part is great. There's some things, and I don't know how much I can share today, but there's some things happening that are going to be new. They'll be exciting. There's going to be things that are changes within the shot that'll help raise the atmosphere. But make no mistake, we got to do our part, certainly. And I think the style we play was enjoyable, but I want to play a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Us raising our collective basketball IQ should create more energy, in there. And I want us to play a little bit faster. But we need the help of the students. There's no question about it. I think there were many a times where they helped carry us through some tough moments of games. And I'm a believer, and I think I've seen that throughout our league. When you look at some of the historic venues in our conference, the atmospheres are impactful. You feel that as an opposing team. Now, this year we were able to overcome some of them, right, and get wins. But I want that same thing in the shot. We're doing our part. I think everybody needs to know we're doing our part to make it a great environment. But make no mistake, we need the help from our students here to help us take it to the next level.
Ross said last week in here that there's going to be more of making the court like a stage. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, making it like a stage. Some of the music might be different, some of those kinds of things that he was looking at. What's the potential of the shot? Like, what is the peak? When the shot's at its best, what can it be?
I remember watching my brother play here, and I was here for senior night. I believe it was senior night his senior year. Game was against Wisconsin, and they had towels all through like the lower bowl. I mean, it was a big game because Wisconsin had beat them at Wisconsin earlier. It was kind of payback. They did a special video up there. Bo Ryan had some things he said after the press conference the first game. The energy in the building at that moment, that to me is what the peak is, the potential of that building. And so we gotta fight to get it back to that. A lot has changed since then, right? It's easier to watch at home now than it's ever been. People's TVs are a little bit bigger than they were back then. Like there's a lot's changed into it, and I understand that. But I view this program as kind of our program, and our former players play a significant role of that. But I think it even extends beyond that throughout the state of Ohio, and we need to all kind of pitch in together, I think, to get it back to that point. Now, that was arguably the best team in the country at that time. And so we got to do our part to keep fighting to get back there. Again, it doesn't have to take a long period of time, but it does take a little bit of time to get there. And we're doing everything we can every single day to do it. But I'm excited because I think the things that Ross has planned and what he and I have been working on are going to be exciting, and it's going to help raise the level.
Yeah. What has it been like working with Ross, and just on his leadership? What has it been like with him? And then do you feel any added pressure knowing that, I mean, you were really his first hire when he got here. You were the first guy that he wanted to bring on full time. Is there any added pressure to that?
Yeah, I don't know that I could add any more pressure than I already put on myself because of how much I care about this program. I think that's the thing. This program means so much to me and my family, and that alone, I don't know that I could add any more pressure than that. And listen, pressure, I've heard Coach Day say this, pressure is a privilege, and there's no question about that. That's how I view it. I think that perspective is incredible. What I've enjoyed most is this partnership with Ross. And I've enjoyed watching, the changes he's made to kind of raise our level here at Ohio State. It's great because we had a legend before, right, in Gene Smith, and I had a great relationship with him. And, he's been, even just when you get a chance to watch how he operated and worked, you learned a lot. And now you get to see what Ross has done and how he's even taken Ohio State to new heights. And, his investment in our program, it's very much a partnership. And, it's been great for me being a first-time head coach. That relationship, is important. And so I'm excited, with his help and the department's support, like I said, not a small step, but a jump that we can make next year.
With being a first-time head coach, I wanted to ask, there's a lot of people that when Ross officially promoted you and you were the head guy, that a lot of people wanted someone more experienced, someone with all these years of experience. What makes you the right guy for this program moving forward?
Yeah, well, listen, it starts with how much I care and love this program. And I can promise you this, there's no one in the country working harder for their program than I'm working for this one. And so, I think the landscape, you look across the country, the landscape of coaching has changed. What it requires has changed. How you navigate the landscape of college basketball has changed significantly. But, the belief that I have in where this program belongs is different than any other coach would believe because I've seen it, I've lived it. I've purposefully set really high expectations for us, and that motivates me every single day. When I step into the office or when we're on the road traveling and working. So, I take my responsibility in this seat to the utmost seriousness. And I'm excited about the staff, I'm excited about the roster, and excited about just the opportunity for us to get this program that I love dearly back to where we belong.
When it comes to scheduling, too, with out-of-conference games, I know that was super important to you in the program, to schedule those tougher games at the beginning of the season. Is that something that you plan to keep going moving forward?
Yeah. They say we want all the smoke, right? Is that kind of, did I get that right?
I think so.
I think, listen, again, it all boils down to where I believe this program belongs. And we belong on a national stage in big-time games. We certainly scheduled that way this year. Scheduling is, there's complexities to it that make it challenging, certainly. But we are being aggressive this year again. Obviously, 20 Big Ten games is going to give you a challenging schedule to begin with.
Yeah.
When you look back, there was a time when there were like 18 or 16 Big Ten games played back. It's different now, and the parity in the league is the best it's ever been, ever. So, even knowing that, we're still going to schedule aggressively in the non-conference. Our goal is to have 5 high major opponents, every single year in the non-conference, and I want to schedule. It's not a perfect science. This isn't a guarantee, but we are pursuing a home high major non-conference game every year. We're trying to do that. So we're going to try to do that again, for next season.
And going back to the transfer portal, a huge chunk of Indiana, Baylor, Maryland, they're losing most of their roster in this now modern landscape. What's your perspective on that, and how tough is it for you and your job to maintain those relationships and keep guys here and roster retention?
Yeah, roster management, I guess we'll call it, it's the hardest part of the sport right now. I think for us, we are off to a great start. We got to put the finishing touches on that. But, you know, it was helpful this year. This year we had a whole staff settled in. Like, we were able to, you know, I think plan ahead a little bit better than last year, new job. I mean, there was a point in time last year where I was really the only one in the office recruiting the portal, you know, or it's kind of what it felt like. And so different time, obviously different kind of, I think, just all around vibe in the spring this year than last year. And that's helped set us up. Started with retention though. And, you know, I think our retention has been great. It's been some of the best in the country.
And of course, we can go on forever talking about NIL and the changing landscape of NIL too. But I know relationships for you are such a pivotal part of what you do. How has it been to manage relationships, and how has it affected relationships with NIL, if at all?
Yeah, you know, there's a business side to college basketball now that didn't exist 5 to 7 years ago. And the business side of it has changed from year to year, from then to now. And so the biggest thing I think is you just got to be honest. I think, again, I'm a believer in you coach in truth, you deal in truth, and ultimately this is Ohio State, right? I'm all for, and you know, I think we've continued to raise our level in the NIL space. We got to continue to raise our level to get to, you know, being one of the top in the country. But with Ross's help, certainly too, we've been able to make incremental steps in that space. But when I envision putting a roster together, NIL certainly should be a factor in guys' decisions, but also should be Ohio State. And wearing that jersey, you know, being a part of this basketball family, being a part of this greater network that's so powerful and impactful, and also taking seriously what you're representing when you put that jersey on, that needs to be a factor too. NIL for me, it just can't be the only factor. If it's the only factor for guys, you know, I think there's other places they can go. But we got a roster full of guys who, you know, NIL played a role. There's no denying that. However, so did those other things we talked about. So did winning. That's really important to me. Getting guys in here who are competitive, who are willing to compete for what they earn in this program, and ultimately put winning as a top priority for them and for us.
I wanted to ask about Sean entering the portal with just a couple hours, officially entering the portal just a couple hours before it closed. How much tougher does it make your job, and how do you manage something like that when it happens with just a couple hours before?
Yeah, you know, there have been conversations kind of throughout the spring, and the basis of those conversations I'd prefer to keep private, you know, and I think the hardest thing for Sean was he loved his experience here. He told me that, and ultimately though, you know, he made a decision that he felt was best for him. And, you know, we had to be very honest. I wasn't going to tell him anything that wasn't true to try to manipulate him to stay either.
Yeah.
You know, I think you just got to be very honest and have honest dialogue. And at the end of the day, roster management is fluid. There's a portal closing date that I think provides some clarity, but it's still very fluid. And with Sean, nothing but the best. He's, I guess, a great young man. I was going to say a great kid, but you know, he's not exactly kids. But he's a great young man, and you know, we wish him the best. And I think, like I told guys, the opportunity when we have availability, right? It gives us an opportunity to raise our level too, and that's what we're focused on.
The last thing I got for you, looking forward to next season, what is the potential of the team going? I know it's not totally filled out yet, but what's the potential of the program, the team going into next season, and any personal, I guess, goals or things that you're eyeing?
You know, for me, the goal from year to year doesn't change, and it's a fight to get this program back to where we belong. I think, you know, we certainly got to make a jump to get to that level. It can't be another small step. We took a step this year. I think, even though we didn't reach our goal of getting to that level, we still took a step forward from where the program was. We got to take a jump, and I think we are positioned to do that. I feel really confident in that. I'm very excited, you know, about this group of guys we put together. I'm excited about the collection of experience, toughness, skill, basketball IQ. I can't wait to get started. You know, I can't wait we got to build chemistry. I'm a believer in chemistry and the value of that. We got to build that. We got to find a way to speed that up. You know, you got to do that faster than anybody else. That's kind of part of the game within the game. But I think we got the right guys. We got good guys who are here for the right reasons. And, you know, so I'm really excited, you know, really excited, and have high expectations for this group.